Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Manuel Velez. I am the chair of the Chicano Studies Department. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here this afternoon. This is going to be an exciting afternoon where we get a chance to watch an excellent documentary on one of the San Diego's most cherished heroes, Chunky Sanchez. It's going to be a great afternoon. We also have the wonderful opportunity to listen to some great music by La Rondalla Amerindia de Aztlán. So I'm very glad that you're here, and I know that we're all looking forward to a wonderful afternoon. So what we're going to do is, before we get started watching the film, we're actually going to listen to some music from La Rondalla Amerindia de Aztlán. They asked to come in and play some music for us. The music is related to the film as well. In fact, I think one of our members is in the film also. So let me introduce the Rondalla. We have Cynthia Alvarado. We have Tres Caras de Aztlán, or Dr. Rivera. Marco Antonio Rodriguez. And Antonio Valladolid. They are Rondalla Amerindia de Aztlán. Give them a wonderful hand.
Okay, so if be thinking of a question or two, we might provide an opportunity if there's time for you to ask a question of us. And Tony over here, Valladolid, when he's ready, he's going to introduce us to you.
My apologies for being late. We are, as has already been said, we're the Rondalla Amerindia de Aztlán. We are a musical group, Rondalla, that was founded about approximately 55 years ago by Dr. Pepe Villarino, who unfortunately, and if we don't hit the quality we're accustomed to, it's because our leader, our fearless leader, is not with us right now. He's ill and at home, but we're going to carry on. In addition to Pepe, there were approximately 10 original Rondalla members. Very early on in the work that the Rondalla did, Cesar Chavez identified the Rondalla as a musical group that he wanted to attend conferences, rallies, marches, and celebrations of all types. And so the Rondalla traveled up and down the state of California singing the songs, some of which you'll hear today. One of our members from the very, very inception was Ramon Chunky Sanchez, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. If you're not, the movie will take care of that. In any event, as you probably know, he passed away a few years ago, but he played right up until the end with the Rondalla. We sing with his spirit in mind at all times. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, yo soy Chicano. Yo soy chicana, tengo color, americana pero con honor. Cuando me dicen que hay revolución, defiendo a mi raza con mucho valor. Tengo todita mi gente para la revolución. Voy a luchar por los pobres, para que se acabe el pueblo. Yo soy chicana, tengo color, americana pero con honor. Cuando me dicen que hay revolución, defiendo a mi raza con mucho valor. Tengo mi orgullo, tengo mi fe, soy diferente, soy color café. Tengo cultura, tengo corazón, y no me lo quita, soy puro corazón. Yo soy chicano, tengo color, americano pero con honor. Cuando me dicen que hay revolución, defiendo a mi raza con mucho valor. Tengo todita mi gente para la revolución. Voy a luchar por las pobres, para que se acabe el pueblo. Yo soy chicana. Our next song is, Chucky wrote this song, it's called Trilingual Corrido. Es hermano que no entiendes, come and sit aquí conmigo. Let me tell you en mi canto lo que me hizo un enemigo. I was born aquí en Aztlán y mi barrio fue en Califas, aunque tú seas de aquel lado, las costumbres son las mismas. I was raised pisando uvas, betabeles y melones. All the bosses look the same, eran gordos y pelones. Me forzaron a la escuela para aprender el inglés. Now they all call me a pocho, porque lo hablas al revés. My jefito made it big, se cruzó pues de bracero. Pronto a los 20 años avanzó a ser becero. Ya nos quieren deportar por venir del otro lado. Sáquenlos de mi país, les grita el anaranjado. El pinche Trump despierta pueblo. Es bonito ser chicano, peleando la causa entera, buscando la libertad por cualquier forma y manera. Es hermano que no entiendes, come and sit right here conmigo. Let me tell you en mi canto lo que me hizo un enemigo. Okay, so the next song we're going to dedicate to the females. A lot of champion women in our history, in our Chicano history, have marched and shouted the huelga shouts alongside with Cesar Chavez, with Dolores Huerta. So this song is very unique and very speaks to me, and it's called Mujeres Valientes.
So on this one, if you feel like clapping, get into it.
Frente de liberación del pueblo latino mexicano. Existen mujeres lindas y valientes, existen mujeres que saben luchar, existen mujeres lindas y valientes, existen mujeres que saben luchar. Seguimos adelante con la guitarra campesina.
¿Quién la escribió?
Los alacranes mojados.
Chunky.
Oye, hermanos campesinos, yo les vengo aquí a cantar que en este país tan rico aprendimos a luchar. En este país tan rico aprendimos a luchar. Yo vengo del Imperial, de Coachella y San Joaquín, a pelear con los rancheros y para darles ya su fin. A pelear con los rancheros y para darles ya su fin. La guitarra campesina, la guitarra campesina, la guitarra campesina. En huelga se levantó. Mantenemos la nación y siempre nos tratan mal. Cuando llega el día de pago, quedamos todos igual. Cuando llega el día del pago, quedamos todos igual. Este pueblo está olvidado en la ley de esta nación. Nuestra gente en el solazo, los ricos en su mansión. Nuestra gente en el solazo, los ricos en su mansión. La guitarra campesina, la guitarra campesina, la guitarra campesina. En huelga se levantó. Cuando pidieron justicia, en camiones los echaron y todos gritando huelga, al bote todos llegaron. Y todos gritando huelga, al bote todos llegaron. En esta línea de guardia no me salgo, mis hermanos, hasta que ya me respeten como a un ser humano. Hasta que ya me respeten como a un ser humano. La guitarra campesina, la guitarra campesina, la guitarra campesina. En huelga se levantó. Okay, so this next one is it's a good one. It's a very important song for our group and also for the message that Chunky wanted to give to the students, especially the students everywhere, at all levels, kindergarten all the way to the top. It's called Rising Souls. Well, it's time to shine the light on the young souls of the earth. Let it shine, illuminate the beauty of their work. I said it's time to shine the light on the young souls of the earth. Let it shine, illuminate the beauty of their work. We gotta educate, not incarcerate. Souls of humanity will shine. Educate, not incarcerate. in health. We gotta educate, not incarcerate. Souls of humanity will shine. Educate, not incarcerate. Souls of humanity will shine. The will to want to learn in all our hearts we hold. Like Brother Cesar Chavez and Dr. King have told. The will to want to learn in all our hearts we hold. Like Brother Cesar Chavez and Dr. King have told. We gotta educate, not incarcerate. Souls of humanity will shine. Educate, not incarcerate. Souls of humanity will shine.
2, 3, 4.
¡Viva Champion!
Okay, so we're gonna finish with the Rondalla Merindía de Aslan signature song. It's a song that's very powerful for us, and we hope it feels that way for you as well. And it's called Somos de Piedra.
Unidos todos, pueblo con pueblo, derrotaremos al mal gobierno.
Unidos todos, pueblo con pueblo, derrotaremos al mal gobierno. Vamos decididos a romper con las cadenas, la opresión que nos ahoga día a día. Vamos ya muchachas y muchachos, vamos a luchar por nuestras tierras. En la lucha no podrán vencernos. Somos de piedra, somos de piedra.
Obreros todos y campesinos, extinguiremos al imperialismo.
Obreros todos y campesinos, extinguiremos al imperialismo. Vamos a aplastar la bota yanqui para siempre, así tendremos libertad definitiva. Vamos ya muchachas y muchachos, vamos a luchar por nuestras tierras. En la lucha no podrán vencernos. Somos de piedra, somos de piedra.
Ya con el triunfo de nuestra lucha habrá justicia, igualdad social.
Ya con el triunfo de nuestra lucha habrá justicia e igualdad social. Armados, oprimidos en la tierra, vamos todos decididos hacia la revolución. Vamos ya muchachas y muchachos,
and Mesa College. So we have like 5 minutes left. No, we don't, do we?
If anybody has any questions or comments, if you want to ask them any questions or comments at this point.
Next
Get any
time.
questions?
If we were ready for it, come to Chicano Park. We'll do during this session.
Watch the film.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
You guys have a CD?
Not yet.
The closest you get is Los Alacranes, Mojados, and Los Perros, a group. Some of the Rondalla members that went off to LA for a time cut a really wonderful CD that has a lot of these songs. And I did want to say just one quick thing. The Rondalla was born at San Diego State. I wasn't there because I was here at Mesa College. So came out of here and then headed out to UCSD. But they're all wonderful friends, and it's a great organization.
I'm wondering, what's the logo mean? What's the meaning of it? The eagle that you guys have in the...
Oh, it's the
This is the emblem of the United Farm Workers Union.
The red flags. You'll see them in the film as well.
Yeah, you'll see that, but it goes
Yeah. Show
right
it to
back
them.
to
Show it to
the
them.
Thank you.
That's another version.
Any other questions?
Just a comment that, like, thank you. All the songs were very, like, super powerful.
Oh,
I love the one for, like, the last one. Well, all of them, they were, like, so powerful. But the one that you said that talked about the women.
Mujeres Valientes.
Yeah, Mujeres Valientes. And also the last one, it was like,
Somos
my
de
God,
Piedra.
so powerful.
Thank you. These songs are real. They speak to us. They speak to the experience that we went through when we were all in college and we were finding our own identity as Chicanos, because, you know, as you'll find in the film, that we didn't fit in Mexico. We were pochos and gringos, and then on this side we're just Mexican. Didn't matter if you were here 10 generations. Yeah. So those are all good messages to understand. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm from Fallbrook, California. This is our logo this year for Fallbrook LA. And I just want to commend you for having come to Fallbrook to sing for our little community, because you are a musicians of the community, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
So let's all give the Rondalla Amerindia del Estado one last definitely can't think of a better way to start this event with their music. It definitely energizes us, gives us the right sense of vibe. I wish I could have these guys in my class. I think I had great conversations in my class if we started with this. In any case, though, before we do get started with the actual film screening, I do want to take a couple of minutes, first of all, to thank some people for this event. Certainly the Chicano Latino Heritage Committee, which is the committee that helped to organize this event. Thank you very much for all the members. I see Ramiro sitting way back there over there. I also want to thank the Chicano Studies faculty who also are working on this, so thank you very much, Olivia, and my Chicano Studies work studies, as well as my Machistas, who have also been very supportive and helpful for this event as well. And then certainly I want to thank the Mesa College Foundation and their innovation grant, which is really how we're able to bring in this wonderful programming in today. They've given us a generous fund so that we can bring this event, and so I definitely want to make sure that we thank the Mesa College Foundation, their innovation grant, and certainly the Mesa College administration, who has always been very, very supportive of events such as these and of making sure that students of color are represented in all the events that we have here on campus. So thank you to all of them, and a very big thank you to all of you here today. I see a lot of students here. I see some administration and some faculty here. I see some community members here. Glow, I see you over there. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Again, I feel this very strong sense of community. I don't know if it was the music or if it's the space, but I'm very, very, very happy that all of you are here. So let's go ahead and get started with the screening itself. Let me start off just by introducing Paul, and Paul's going to introduce the film for you. All of you are probably very familiar with Paul Espinosa's work, especially if you've taken any Chicano Studies class at any point in your life, because he's developed some great documentaries and some great films that we have used throughout the course of Chicano Studies. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Paul Espinosa is an award-winning filmmaker and president of Espinosa Productions, a San Diego production company specializing in films focused on the U.S.-Mexico border region. He has been involved with producing films for nearly 40 years. His many films for PBS include The Lemon Grove Incident, And the Earth Did Not Swallow Him, The Hunt for Pancho Villa, The U.S.-Mexican War, 1846 to 1848, In the Shadow of the Law, and Ballad of an Unsung Hero. Espinosa's films have been screened at festivals around the world and have won many awards, including 8 Emmys. Everybody, let's welcome Paul Espinosa.
Thank you all for coming out today. I really appreciate it. We're going to have a nice, as Manuel said, we're going to have a wonderful afternoon. I want to take a special moment just to thank the Rondalla for that wonderful, beautiful musical introduction to get us in the mood. Gracias, Rondalla. Also, my thanks to Manuel Velez for coordinating today's event. He's the chair of the Department of Chicano and Chicano Studies, and all the folks that Manuel thanked, I thank as well, because I know pulling off an event like this takes a lot of work. And also, I know that there are many people here in the audience who actually supported this film over many years. This was a project that took too many years to produce, but we did have many supporters who really stood with us over a long period of time. When we start the beginning of the film, you'll see a list of names coming up, and that's just look for your name. Your name is probably going to be there if you're one of the supporters. But it's those kind of support that really made a big difference in terms of being able to make this film. Also, I think you'll see, hopefully, that many of the issues that the film deals with, and some of the issues we just heard from in the songs, are issues that are still so central to our everyday existence. And I think that, Chunky, you'll see that he used his voice to really demand justice for all peoples. And I think that's something that we really need today. He knew that you could take from both sides of the border, that things were better by making things bigger and better from taking both sides of the border. I'm really pleased that we have so many students here today. Certainly one of the objectives in making this film was to pass along some of the messages that we just heard from these songs, and messages from the Chicano Civil Rights Movement and from Chunky to our younger generation today. So hopefully the film will be part of a process of making that happen. So at this point, and we do have some time after the film for a question and answer, so please stick around after the film, and I'd love to hear your comments, your reactions, questions about the film. So we're going to take a look at the film. Hopefully we'll be able to do this without any technical problems. Is Carlos still here? Oh, Carlos. Yeah.
Open it up to Q&A, so if you have any questions, any comments at all for Paul, now's the time to ask. I'm sure that he has some comments as well that he'd like to share with you, so let's open it up. Any questions, any comments?
Hi, Paul. Thank you. Otra vez, mil gracias. Thank you. Is that you typing on the typewriter?
Yes.
And what kind of typewriter was it?
It's a Underwood, an old Underwood typewriter.
Do you still have it?
I still have it, yeah.
For all of you, that's an old device they used to use for non-digital writing on paper. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your long, hard work.
Thank
You
you.
really did capture the soul of Chunky. He and my mother were very, very good friends. She worked with him and the United Farm Workers, and he came and sang at her memorial service. He came and sang at our home on her 90th birthday, and brought his wife and that little boy you have in the movie. He had soul, and he shared it and brought other people's souls out. So, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm sure many people have stories like that of Chunky going to sing to their, in some cases, dying parents or friends. Many times he would do that really just, out of the goodness of his heart. I mean, he really was a really dedicated person to our community, and somebody that whose passing we still feel, we still mourn. But thank you for those comments.
Other questions?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the beautiful film. I did cry for the film. I see a little of my life. I was in the military for 3 deployments. One in Iraq, 3 in Afghanistan. I was called a redback. I was called a bean. I was asked, I can't just speak English. And because of that, I did better myself. I educated myself. And I forgot where I was coming, where I came from Mexico City. I was turning into a coconut. But now after this film, I feel proud to be brown.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very moving. I mean, you're of course much younger than Chunky, but I think that one of the things that I feel is a lot of the themes, this question about identity, about feeling that you're caught between here and there, that theme that he's talking about 50 years ago, and actually somebody could have talked about it 100 years ago, is still very much around. I mean, I know because I know there's probably people in the audience that feel that, and certainly in many of the screenings that we've had, especially with younger students, with high school students even, that idea that, you know, this feeling of still trying to understand identity, to feel this feeling of being betwixt and between, caught between two different sides, basically. I know that still resonates with a lot of people. So thank you for sharing those thoughts and those feelings. I appreciate that.
Do you have any other questions? No?
Thank you so much for doing this production. It swells my heart to hear him and see him again. And those that were friends with him, I mean, will appreciate seeing this over and over again. And if you didn't know, Chunky taught a class here at Mesa College one time, I think it was '98. It was the history of Mexican music. I was one of his students, and he brought in all of his friends one at a time to be guest speakers. Mario Aguilar was the first one, and he made it so easy to be proud of who you were. He made it so easy to say, self-identify. Don't let anybody say who you are. You say who you are. You find value in yourself, and be proud of that. And that message continues to be spread, and I think will always be spread. We need to hear that. Our youth need to hear that, understand that they are valuable. And Chunky's life, he did what he was supposed to do, what he was meant to do. What he did for everyone, but his sharing of himself, and it was a great sacrifice. But through his music and through his humor, and just being who he was, and with like this film, we are able to we remember again that being just who you are is great. Not to be what somebody else expects you to be, but be true to yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lula, for those comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, I worked with for many years with a group of youth in Fallbrook, California, and Chunky was an incredible supporter of everything that I did. He would come up there and talk to, the youth that I work with, and he would talk about, what it was to be Chicano, what it was about to, gain respect, what it was about to walk with your head up high, what it was to be dignified, And one of the things that I remember so well is that after every speech that he would give the youth that I would work with, he would always tell them, honor Panchita, take care of Panchita, because, we need her in this world. And then I would say, no, we need you, and we need all these youth that are coming up to us so that they can, walk in pride, walk in honor, walk in dignity, representing us as Chicanos. And he was such an amazing part. And on a personal note, whenever I would run into him, the minute he would see me, if they were on stage or playing and I would see him, immediately he'd start singing El Jardín de Pancha. And that was amazing. So I just feel so blessed and so honored to have known him and to have been his friend.
Thank you, Panchita. And really, the film in a way doesn't do justice to, as you're saying, the many, many occasions for years that Chunky went out to talk and play in schools all over, really not all over the county, but really all over the whole American Southwest. I mean, he definitely, we've started to roll the film out to festivals and to screenings in other parts of the country, and definitely there's a very big following that Chunky had in Kansas City, in Denver, in Albuquerque, in Tucson, in many cities, and he was really dedicated to basically taking the message that he had to whoever was willing to listen to it. So I think many people would identify with that experience that you're talking about. Yes.
At what point did you as a filmmaker decide that this was a subject that you wanted to tackle?
Well, I met Chunky, I think, almost when I've been in San Diego since the late 70s. And when I came to San Diego, I don't know exactly when I first met Chunky, but it was around that time, because I was starting to do produce films basically on the Latino experience and on the U.S.-Mexico border region. And so we were constantly sort of crossing paths in different kinds of events. And so I knew Chunky for a long time. I did two of my early documentaries, which were done in the 1980s, The Trail North and Lemon Grove Incident. I had him score music for those films. And then later, I think it was in the early 90s, I wanted to do just a performance show. In fact, the performances that we see, there's with a live audience in this film. That's a full performance show that I did with him, with his group back in the early 90s, and we use a little bit of this film. But basically, I always wanted to do something more, with Chunky, although I wasn't exactly sure what it would be. And it was maybe in the it was around 2004 that I decided that the most important thing was to sit him down and do a long interview with him. Because even at that point, I was very, very concerned about his health. That was in 2004. I mean, he passed in 2016. And that's the most of the interview, or that you see in the film is kind of the spine of the film. Really, is his memories and his stories. That was done in 2004. So that was a very extended interview, basically just really about his life, an oral history of his life. But at that point, I didn't know. Well, first of all, I didn't have the resources to do anything further. I felt it was just important to capture that interview with him. In fact, I would counsel anybody here who has, your parents or your grandparents who you haven't spoken to or who have memories like this, to sit them down, especially today with everybody carrying a camera in their pocket, to sit them down and do an extended interview with them, because those stories, you'll lose those stories if you don't capture them, basically. And I think for so many people, the experience of even knowing anything about their grandparents is rare sometimes. So, I encourage people to do that. But anyway, I basically had to sort of put that interview on the shelf, and then, sort of came back probably, back around 2011, I think, to say, okay, I really need to do something more with this. And then started to try to raise money, which took a long time. We did two Kickstarter campaigns, crowdfunding campaigns. In fact, as you saw, the long list of people in the credits, there was many people that supported it. And then also, trying to figure out how we would do it. A lot of work to find archival material. You see, there's a lot of archival footage from various sources, all kinds of sources, both institutional sources as well as individuals, friends, and other people that came up with material. So it took a really extended period to make the film and to finish the film.
Well, you did a beautiful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
Paul, the movie in itself is already a success because we waited a long time for this, but do you have another end goal? Is there another end goal that you foresee for this film, and how can we help you achieve that?
Well, basically, what I want to do is get this film in front of as many people as possible. I mean, basically, maybe just to back up a little bit, I mean, I've been, relatively successful with having a lot of films on public television. And I think this film eventually will be on public television, although it's anybody's guess these days, because public television has, in my opinion, sort of taken a slightly different turn in terms of the kinds of material that they have on. But I'm also very, very committed to trying to get the film out to a wide educational distribution, particularly into not just colleges and universities, but also high schools. Because I think basically a lot of just as we were saying here, some of these issues that we're talking about are very, very relevant, especially to young Latinos wherever they are. I mean, today, Mexican origin people in the United States are 40 million people. Latinos are 60 million people. We're larger than many countries. We have more. There are more Latinos than there are Canadians in all of Canada, and our story is virtually untold, especially at the national level. So my hope is that this will be another piece of another addition to hopefully a larger body of work that needs to be out there to both orient and educate people about some of this story, but also hopefully spark conversation about some of these issues, because I also think that today, in a lot of ways, we're losing the ability to have conversation about a lot of very, very important issues. I mean, we can sort of point the fingers at a lot of different kinds of things, but the basic reality is that as a sort of functioning democracy, it's really important to be able to talk about different things and have different points of view. And if there's no space to do that, it just becomes very, polarized, basically. So hopefully, again, I think the classroom is definitely an important place for that to happen, and I hope that will continue through the distribution of the film. So that's sort of the long range plan, which I think is going to take some time to get the film out to wider audiences, to schools, and eventually, I say, to broadcast. KPBS locally will, I know for sure, air the film, and then probably other public television stations in other parts of the country will also air it, eventually. Yeah.
I'm glad you included the StoryCorps story about Facundo. I mean, that just so illustrates that StoryCorps people go and sit and talk about something that is important to them. And the fact that of all the things that happened to him in his life, that's what he wanted. It'll come up in the Library of Congress. The story of Facundo, that just shows his sharpness and his obviously sense of humor, and the way to make a really good point in what, a minute and a half?
Yeah, less than a minute, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great story, and thanks to StoryCorps that actually produced the animation,
right,
and then allowed me to use that in the film, because it was very. I mean, I had the story because one of the things with Chunky is that he would tell stories. You heard his stories many times. I had the story, but I didn't have the animation. But they were very gracious in allowing me to use it, so that was great, because it also, it's an important story, but it's also kind of sets him up as a character in terms of particularly his use of humor, which was so wonderful to engage with an audience. That was such a powerful weapon that he used, over and over again. Yeah.
So growing up, we were lucky enough to have Chunky play like some family get-togethers, and just to see him accept the award from the government was really cool. Just to see him get recognition on that level, and just to be able to say, I was able to listen to him play chorizo sandwich at a family party. That's incredible. It was really powerful. I didn't expect it to be so emotional, but it was great. It's great because it's a nostalgic thing. My father can enjoy it and we can share it together. Just for that, it's great, but it also is very informative, and I think it just touched on a lot of stuff like this guy's talking about. Losing some of himself while going out to war. Like, I can not on that level, but just growing up in San Diego, like, I got called Pocho. Like, it informed me, and it also gave me a sense of pride. Like, he was really passionate about be proud of who you are, exactly who you are. Don't try to be accepted, just be who you are and roll with that. And I just really dug it. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. That was very heartwarming. Yes.
So you mentioned StoryCorps about the animations. Were they also responsible for the 3D photo type of animations as well?
No, just that one animation. That one animation of the Facundo story came from StoryCorps. All the rest of the animation was done. I did it, or we did it. I had a team. One of the people that did some really incredible work was Evan Apodaca, who's a young filmmaker here in San Diego. He did some of the other animations, as well as some of the work on the photographs. Obviously, you can see in the photographs the way the photographs move. There was a lot of work done on those to try to give some depth and some movement, basically, to different things, to try to, again, we're working with a lot of, basically still photographs, and in some cases not as many as you would like in a feature-length film, and trying to get as much out of them as you can. Maybe one thing I should mention, another really important source that turned out to be incredibly valuable to me was in the last during the time of post-production, the last several years, there was a newspaper in Los Angeles, some of you may know, La Raza newspaper, which was very active between 1967 and 1977. And it was a community newspaper that basically covered the Los Angeles community, the Chicano community specifically. And about 2 or 3 years ago, basically their entire photo archive was donated to UCLA. And I was in touch with the people at UCLA, and they basically gave me access to the entire archive to potentially use some of the photographs from their archive. And they were, incredible photographs, because they were basically photographing a lot of things that weren't being photographed by mainstream media, just people in the community doing, whatever they were doing. And in many cases, these were very, very close-up shots that could be anywhere. It could have been San Diego, could have been Denver, could have been Albuquerque, could have been, Austin, whatever. Anyway, that proved to be a real resource for me. I was able to, the UCLA gave me access, and then I actually worked with the individual photographers, went back to the individual photographers, and was able to get the right to use a number of these photographs. I mentioned, it's a little late now, but for the last year, it actually just closed at the end of February, the Autry Museum in Los Angeles had an exhibition of their photographs for about a year. Again, just sort of the photographs from this newspaper that was, like I say, was really what we would call today citizen journalism, covering the community in a way that, a lot of times the mainstream press is just not paying attention to all these things that are going on in the specific sub-communities of whatever city you're talking about. Yeah.
Paul, I have a question. When you're using that typewriter and he's getting that acceptance from San Diego State, in your interview with Chunky, did he talk more about that risk of leaving Blythe and how that was? I mean, I have a friend who also left Blythe, and he tells me stories how just moving west, right, to San Diego was like terrifying, right? And it's, did he speak more of that, how that was just maybe a turning point in his life?
Yeah, he did. I mean, I hope that, one of the things also about Chunky's story is that I felt that there were a lot of things about his story which really were somewhat universal. I know that experience that he's talking about of basically, and it couldn't just be leaving a small town, but leaving any place that you're familiar with, and going, to him, like going to San Diego was like going to the other side of the world almost, but yeah, a lot of anxiety, a lot of trepidation about that. We actually did extensive interviews with a whole bunch of people that went to school with Chunky in Blythe. Unfortunately, in the final, editing, I mean, you do a lot, you interview lots and lots of people that don't end up in the film, but really try to, flesh out as much as possible that experience. Another sort of big challenge was like how much of the Blythe story to tell. But I felt it was very important that we understood, Chunky's sort of, origin, so to speak, the kind of place that he came from, and what it was like to go to San Diego State at that time. And I think that experience, especially for lots and lots, this is also a moment, the late 60s and early 70s, where a lot of young Mexican-American people that came from rural communities were going to, the cities, particularly going to school under affirmative action policies, and really, and many of them didn't stay. As Chunky said, he said when he got there it was sort of like, well, am I going to stay here, or am I going to go back to just, the life that my parents have set out for me? As he says, the foreman says, one day, your son's going to make a great foreman on this ranch. Mm-hmm. And Chunky's like, wow, I guess my life is already set. I got to get out of here. But Chunky, I guess in that sense, was a little bit unusual in that he really, wanted to be able to define his own life in a way that I guess all of us want to, but sometimes we're not able to because there's a lot of intervening circumstances. But I think that was like a very important moment. And I know sometimes when I've shown the film to other young people, like let's say college age kids, they can identify with that kind of experience, that kind of story of just what am I going to do with my life, and should I take the risk of going to someplace that's totally unfamiliar to me.
I think we had a question over here. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Was Chunky able to see your finished product before he passed?
No, he did see different pieces of it. We had done a lot of segments that we did over time, and I knew would be part of the finished film. Obviously, some of the great stories that are in the film. He did see the not that he needed to, but the crossing the fence story and other things like that. But he was not able to see the final film. He passed before we finished the film. That was passed in October of 2016, and we really didn't finish the film until really last year.
What was his final performance? I saw him at Border X. I think
That
was
was-
one of your promotions.
Yeah. When we were doing the final Kickstarter, basically, that was like September the 9th of 2016, and he passed October 28th of 2000. He passed like 6 weeks later. So that was really the last performance that he actually gave with many people from the Rodaya were there that night also. It was really it's very emotional. A very emotional, thing. I can also say that the whole thing in Washington D.C. was also really emotional because basically when he got this award, basically it didn't seem like he was going to be able to go at all. And the people at the National Endowment for the Arts, they contacted me because they knew that I was working on a film on him, and they asked me to produce a short piece that could be used there. Basically, they honor about 8 or 9 folk artists from all over the country every year, and so they wanted to. All of the other artists were going, but they didn't think that Chunky would be able to go because he was not well at all at that point. And so I did about a 4 or 5 minute little piece that was going to be used to play there to sort of introduce him to that audience. And then literally, like a week before the thing was going to happen, he got the go-ahead to go. And so he went, so of course I jumped on a plane to go out there also because we wanted to capture that. And then I think the amazing thing to me was like the performance that he gave there, which is the performance you see at the very end of the film. I mean, he really had to dig deep into his soul and his person to perform like that. I mean, I was really amazed. It was really something to see. And also the talk that he gave, he actually spoke that when we were there, for those of you who've been in Washington, that one of those closing shots is there in the rotunda of the Library of Congress, which is an incredibly beautiful, space. And that's where they had they had a dinner there, and they asked each of the honorees to, speak, say whatever. And Chunky spoke for about 15 minutes, and he was just so on point in terms of what he was talking about. That's one of the things where he talked about, Chicano being a state of mind and a state of heart, which I thought was a really, really great statement from him in terms of how to think about these things. So. But that was also another really moving time for me anyway in terms of making the film. Yeah.
Hi, Paul.
Hi.
First of all, it's really an honor to finally be here and see your work. And I want to just add that when you were talking about the pictures and how you had to use with still shots, I think for me that was one of the things that really drew me into the story. Was that these still pictures and the ones that kept showing up over and over really made an imprint of him in my mind, and somehow I felt a much deeper connection, considering also that I grew up with Chunky in many occasions and sang Manos Mobaran and grew up with many of the artists in there and saw that it was very, very moving for me. I felt like I was going back to my childhood. But I also wanted to ask a question as to, with this piece, it seems to be, it's so important and relevant today because we're talking about identity, and I'm thinking the Chicano voice and the whole concept of the Chicano movement isn't what it was back then. And so it seems like with this film, it could really help reignite some of these feelings because there's a lot of, you don't hear the word Chicano so much as you did like when I was growing up, and it's not really an identity. It seems to be like a Latinx or different identities. So how would Chunky think about today for the next generation passing on that Chicana identity for this up and coming generation in the times that we're living in? That was a big question.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think Chunky would probably say that every generation has to find its own identity, basically.
Right.
And so, and then we see today that each generation is looking for identity. Maybe they'll land in the same place, maybe they won't. I mean, I think what's really important is this larger struggle for social justice, for like fighting against racism. I mean, so many of the issues that basically were motivating the Chicano generation are still so present in our society, maybe even more so today. I mean, when we look at what's happening in terms of, you know, the whole like immigration, the U.S.-Mexican border region, I mean, we are talking about a level of cruelty and brutality that didn't exist during the Chicano generation. I'm not saying there wasn't racism and discrimination, but certainly the kinds of things that we see are almost, you know, just unbelievable, basically. You know, what is happening to families, what is happening to children. So I think that there's always lots of room for struggle, for fighting. You know, I mean, more than ever. I mean, basically we see that we've been through a very large civil rights movement that, you know, 50 years ago. There's certainly kinds of successes that happened because of that. We're in a different place than we were back then, but there's no question that we have a huge fight on our hands today, and we need to all do whatever we can to keep moving forward and make sure that we're bringing everybody along with us. And you know, there's so many efforts to undermine our forward momentum, basically. So, yeah.
Again, once again, thank you. By the way, the performance of Order X was the final performance, and there's a short anecdote about that, is that you saw in the Library of Congress performance how strong his voice was still, even though the shell, the body, was maybe not as hale and hearty as before. And my daughter Maggie was lucky enough to be there in DC for that presentation. And so his voice is, I mean, if there was a way to clone that, you know, and at Border X, they were having technical issues with the microphones and so on. But Chunky, his voice came through. Who's that? What's wrong? How can we hear that voice? Who is it? Oh, it's Chunky. Because you didn't even need mics.